Yeah,
Okay.
we're recording now. Thank you.
Thanks. So we thank you very much for joining us. So these guys here, there's all from different schools and different areas. They run a YouTube channel where they do lots of interviews. They've interviewed politicians. Next week they're going to a dog rescue centre with donations and to do an interview. So we're so glad that you've joined us. And then before they all take their turns to ask you questions that they've prepared, we're wondering if we could hear a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, no problem at all. So we train dogs for children with autism. The dogs begin training at 8 weeks of age, and it takes up to 2 years to have them fully trained. And when they're fully trained, they're carefully matched to a child on our waiting list. So they go to children with autism who would have very limited kind of danger awareness, and they would struggle to be out and about in public. So the dogs are actually trained to keep those children safe when they're out of the home, and they're attached to the child with a belt. So the dog wears a special jacket and it's attached to the child then with a belt, and the dog listens to the person handling the dog, which is usually mom or dad, who gives the dog instructions, very much like a guide dog. So the dog understands how to turn left and right and road safety and things like that. So yeah, that's what we do. We have at the moment about 70 dogs in training at various stages of the program. And there's actually 4 dogs going out next week to new families, which we're really excited about.
That's amazing. That's a really, really important role you have, especially within the community. And 2 years, that's a really long time for a doggy to get training. The guys had Dogs Trust come to their schools a couple of weeks ago. And he talked about training and all the different jobs and roles that dogs have within our community. So yours is a very important charity run base, and it's very important that you're helping people who can now actually get outside more in a safe manner, helping the children and the families. It's great. I'm going to ask Alex in Hazelbrook, who is going to go unmute himself and go with his first question.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Alex. My first question is, how do dogs help?
How do the dogs help? Well, what they're trained to do is to keep the child safe. So the children that have the dogs would struggle to go out and about because they get easily upset by loud noises, busy places. And when they get upset, they have a tendency to run, to try and get away from what's upsetting them. And they can end up in really dangerous situations, like on a road, or they can end up lost. So the dog is attached to them to keep them safe. And that's the main reason that the dog is there, and what the dog's trained to do. So that if a child tries to run away from the dog is trained to basically stand still or sit down so that the child can't run into any danger. But the other thing that the dogs do is help in terms of relaxation and calming. So when you're quite stressed, I don't know if any of you have any dogs, but I know when I'm quite stressed, I sometimes sit on the floor and pet my dog and I feel better straight away. So the children that have these dogs, we try and encourage a really strong bond between the dog and the child. And what happens then is when the child is upset or a little bit nervous or anxious, they can pet the dog and they use the dog to calm themselves down. So the situation is not as scary or is not as overwhelming. So when they're out, they can rub the dog or hold on to the dog and they feel much safer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good question, Alex.
Do you have another question, Alex?
Yeah, I have can dogs be assistant dogs? Can all dogs be assistant dogs?
No, not all dogs can be assistance dogs, unfortunately. So it takes a really special dog to be an assistance dog. So no, there's lots of jobs a dog can do as an assistance dog. So some assistance dogs are trained by other charities to do different jobs. So sometimes they might help people who have physical disabilities by being able to open doors and things like that. But for any role, any type of assistance dog, the dog needs to have some really special skills. And usually it means that the dog has to enjoy working. Usually they have to enjoy food, because that's how we train the dogs. So they get paid with treats instead of money. They get paid with treats. So they have to enjoy working and enjoy learning, and they have to be very, very confident, because they're out and about in public, and most dogs struggle in those busy environments, especially if they're not exposed to them when they're young puppies. So that's really challenging for the dogs, and they have to learn things like going into lifts and up and down stairs, and on trains, which is not really natural environment for dogs. So it takes a really special dog that's confident in busy places to be able to help as an assistance dog.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alex. And we're going to go over to Ashford National School now. And guys, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your questions?
How do you choose dogs to train?
So we breed some ourselves, and some come from private breeders. We choose the dogs when they're 8 weeks of age. So they're only small little puppies when we choose them, but we have a special testing system. So what we're looking for is puppies that are confident, that are interested in learning. So usually at that age, you know, they want the reward of the treat. If they're looking for to do something to please you, to get the reward, that shows that they've an interest in learning and an interest in training. And also the breeding. So all the dogs that we use come from parents that have been really well health tested. So they've huge long lists of tests that the parent dogs have to undergo. And the reason we do this is because we don't want to spend 2 years training a dog, an assistance dog, for it to have health issues down the line. Once it takes a long time and costs a lot of money to place a dog with a family. And the last thing we want is to place a dog with a family and then find out 3 years later that the dog can't work anymore. That we want to be able to have them working for as long as possible. So they need to come from really good parents who are really healthy. They need to be confident little puppies. And also the size matters for us, because they have to stop the children from running away. So we tend to use medium to large size dogs that would be strong enough, but not too big, because they have to live in the home. So that's how we pick them.
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. That's great. And Ashford, do you have another question?
What happens to dogs that don't do as well?
That's a very good question. So only about half of the dogs that we start training actually make it to the end and qualify as assistance dogs. So there's about half the dogs that enter our training program that for one reason or another don't make it all the way to the end. So the dogs that don't make it all the way to the end, some of them go as companion dogs, which are basically family pets for children with autism who maybe don't need a service dog or don't need an assistance dog, but would benefit from having a bit of help in the home. So the companion dogs go to those children. And then occasionally we get a few dogs that just don't like children. So those dogs would be rehomed then as pets to people who have no children in the home, or maybe older children. But for the most part, most of the dogs would go to children with autism, either service dogs as sort of autism assistance dogs, or they would go as companion dogs.
Sorry, that's great. Thank you. Sorry, my mute is delaying when I press it, so sorry about that. Ashford, would you have one last question, and then we are going to allow everyone else to jump in?
Are we able to sponsor an assistance dog?
You can, of course. Yeah, we have a program called Sponsor a Puppy. So it's actually on our website, and you can have a look at our website, www.aadi.ie. And if you go on there, you should be able to find Sponsor a Puppy. So what we do is every few months we pick 2 puppies that are new to our training program, and we put pictures up, and you can choose which puppy you sponsor, and then you choose how much you want to donate each month to sponsor that puppy. And then Sarah in our office here gets in touch with the families that are fostering the puppies throughout the training program, and she gets in touch with the trainers every month to find out everything that that puppy's been doing and what they've been up to. And she sends updates every month on how the puppy's getting on, so you can follow the journey of the puppy all the way throughout the training program until they get to the very end, when hopefully they're placed with a family, and you'd be told then which family is receiving the assistance dog.
That's actually really, really lovely. We might have to look into that as well. We have a Dogs Trust sponsored dog. So I think we should be due a second sponsored dog, most definitely. So that's something that the kids can organise. That's great. Thank you, Ashford. We're going to move over now to, it's 2 schools in one. It's called De La Salle, the site, but it's got St. Patrick's National School. It's actually 3 schools in one, Holy Rosary and Bethlehem. If you guys would like to go ahead and ask your questions, please.
All right, Nikki's going to go first. What is your favorite dog breed and why?
Oh, my favorite dog breed. Well, here we train mostly Labradors and Retrievers, and the Labradors are like big puppies till they're about 5 years old. They're great, really fun dogs, and they love everything, especially food. So they're quite interesting. But we also train Retrievers who are very, very clever and a little bit stubborn. And so most of the dogs are actually a mixture between the 2 breeds. So I should really say that they're my favorite dogs because that's what we work with. But actually I have a soft spot for Newfoundlands. They're big, fluffy teddy bear dogs, and they're really, really gentle. And we have actually trained a couple of Newfoundland cross retrievers that have turned out really, really nice. Newfoundland.
That's great. Thank you.
Do you have any dogs of your own?
I do. I have a pet dog at home, and she's actually a lurcher. She's she looks a bit like a tiger, a skinny tiger. And she's 12 years old, so she's very old now. And I actually have Zeus, who's one of our assistance dogs. Well, he didn't quite make it as an assistance dog because he had some health issues. So he's the charity's ambassador dog, and I take him to do school visits and to visit companies to talk about what we do. And he actually lives with me at night, but he comes into the office every day, and sometimes the other staff take him out to do different jobs, but at night he stays with me.
Thanks. What about you, Jude? What made you want to become a trainer?
Well, I actually don't train the dogs. I work here in the office with the trainers, but I actually don't train the dogs. I'm in charge of raising awareness and talking to people about the charity. But what made me want to join the charity and start helping the charity raise awareness and raise funds was kind of twofold. So obviously I love dogs, and you have to love dogs to work here because there's dogs in the office, and sometimes they're not always the best behaved. So sometimes you have to listen to them barking and sometimes they steal your lunch if you're not looking. So you have to really love dogs to work here. But the other reason, I actually have a brother who has autism. So I know the challenges that some children and families deal with when they have autism. And actually, since I joined the charity, I spoke to a lot of families who've received the assistance dogs, and it just confirmed my belief in the beginning that they provide really valuable support to families that need them.
And last one from Layla. What is the training process like?
What is the training process like? It's long. It takes 2 years. So they start at 8 weeks and they go to a volunteer foster family, and that foster family would have the puppy for about 12 months. And in that time, they meet with one of our trainers once every few weeks and do a training class. Usually learning basic things like how to sit, how to walk nicely on the lead. And what the volunteer foster family does is takes care of the puppy and make sure it's well socialized with other dogs, so they're used to other dogs, make sure they're used to children of all ages, and most importantly gets them used to busy environments like shopping centres, going in buses and on lifts and things like that. So they're with the foster family for about a year, and then the foster family brings the dogs back to the centre here. And then they go into what we call advanced training. So then during the advanced training, they'll stay with the foster family at weekends. But during the week, it's like school, 9 to 5. They come in and the trainers take them out every single day. And that's when they learn all the special skills that they need, like how to cross a road properly, how to listen to all the commands that they need to learn. And then the final stage is when the instructors or our trainers match the dog to the family. So it's a little bit like trying to find the perfect match for a husband and wife. So they look for you know, the dog's personality, the child's personality. They look at the families, you know, if a family really likes to walk on the beach or they want to go shopping every day, then the dog has to be able to enjoy those things as well. So they have to really carefully match the dogs, and then the dogs are matched to someone on our waiting list. The family gets the call to say they get the dog, and then we have to train the family, which is the final step. So the parent would come here and have some training on how to handle the dog, and then the dog goes home with them, and then our trainer goes and visits them and helps them get used to having the child attached to the dog and going out and about in their local area. So it's quite a long process. There's quite a few bits to it, but it takes between 18 months and 2 years start to finish.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. We're going to go across, just because their internet keeps going in and out, to it's a Gale School Kilmonton in Rathnew, and they're going to ask their questions.
No problem. I think they're on mute.
Yeah, ladies, you have to unmute. Gale School, you have to unmute your phone. They've gone shy. Are you going to unmute, or will I ask my own questions? No,
we're okay. Is it hard to mind dogs?
Keep a careful eye on them. They're a little bit like toddlers sometimes. So if you're not careful, they'll eat things that they're not meant to eat, or they'll escape if you leave a door open and things like that. They need to go to the toilet as often as we do, but they can't go on their own. You have to take them outside so they can go to the toilet. And they can get up to mischief if you're not careful. So it is like having another child, which is really nice if you're a child, because it feels like you've got a brother or sister in your family. But if you're a parent and you've got 1 or 2 children, an extra one, it's like having an extra child in the house. And our puppies are really special because they have to go everywhere with the family. They can't be left on their own. So even when they're young, they have to go to the supermarket to do the shopping. They have to go to the match at the weekend, and they go out to restaurants and things like that. So they have to go in the car and everywhere. They go everywhere. So it's like an extra child in the family, which can be a good thing, or it can be a little bit hard.
That's a great answer. And Gale School, do you have one more question?
Yes.
I think you're
Okay,
on mute
go
again.
ahead.
Oh yeah.
Do the dogs that you like help have to eat different things than normal dogs, or do they eat the same?
Our dogs are on very strict diets because we want them to be very, very healthy and live as long as possible. And also we try and manage how they go to the bathroom, because we don't want dogs with upset tummies in shopping centres. So they have a special diet. It's usually just dog biscuits, but it's a special kind of dog biscuits. And that's all they eat. So they don't eat table scraps. They have special treats that they have, but they can't eat any human food at all. And it just means that we can make sure that they're really healthy and no accidents.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to ask, you're welcome, Girls School. I just wanted to ask, if anyone sees these dogs outside, should they approach them to try and pet them?
No, we do ask people not to distract the dogs or try and pet them if they see them out and about, because the dogs are trying really, really hard to concentrate on the person that's training them or handling them. And especially if they're attached to a child and actually working, it can be really hard for the dog to concentrate on its job if it's distracted by someone trying to pet it. There is one exception when you can pet them, is sometimes we'll be out and about at fundraising events with buckets and collecting and raising awareness, and at these events you are more than welcome to pet the dogs. Usually we take the jackets off the dogs so that the dogs know it's time to have fun and be petted, but if they've got their jackets on, we ask people not to pet them. And if you really, really do want to go and say hello to the dog, we ask you to go and say hello to the person who's leading the dog first and ask them if they would mind if you petted the dog. And usually it's no problem. They don't mind you petting the dog, but you just have to ask first.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's really, really important. And Carla, could you just remind us again, for the mums and dads who will be watching this, if they wanted to make a donation, where would they go?
Yeah, so you can go onto our website, www.aadi.ie. And there's many ways that you can support us, from volunteering to donating to taking on an event or fundraising challenge for us. And there's also more information on how to apply for an assistance dog or companion dog, and what our criteria is and what's involved.
Oh, great. And when you talk about a fundraiser, is that something our committee could be involved in within the schools?
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of schools that run fundraisers for us. So we run every month kind of little challenges. So at the moment we have a cycle challenge that people are taking part in, and we have a steps challenge. The next month I think there's a swimming one. There's one every month. There's all sorts of different ones. So sometimes schools like to get involved in those, or sometimes they like to make up their own. So we had a school that got together and they all did a 2-kilometer walk, and everyone donated a little bit. And we sometimes have things like non-uniform days, or Halloween we might have a few schools do a dress up day, a superhero day we call it, because we think the dogs are superheroes. So we ask people to come in superhero costumes and make a donation.
Yeah.
So
but we might have to come up with some of our own ideas and maybe put something into practice and get a donation going. And most definitely, now the hint has come from Ashford for a sponsor dog. We'll definitely have to get going on that too. So that was quite good suggestion from Ashford. Our time is going to run out on our Zoom. So I think everyone go off mute for a minute so we can all say thank you very much at the same time. Is everyone off mute?
Yeah.
So we'll count to 3 and all say thank you at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Go. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for all your great questions. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.